Monument Valley 3 arrives on the Nintendo Switch, and it's absolutely stunning. I'll say that up front. This is one of the most visually beautiful puzzle games on the Switch. Bold shapes, Escher-style structures, and a world that looks painted by hand. But visuals, they only tell half the story. The real question is, can the gameplay match? Well, that's what we're going to dig into in today's review. So if you do enjoy this video, a like and a subscription really helps out a smaller channel like mine, especially for the quieter releases like this one. And yeah, now let's get into it. The story this time follows Noor, a young apprentice tasked with restoring a lighthouse after her home is hit by rising waters. Now, it's not a grandiose plot, but it doesn't need to be. Most of it unfolds without dialogue, using the world to hint at what's been lost. There's definitely a quiet determination to it, like each puzzle is part of her rebuilding something that is bigger than herself. But I will say this, I don't think the story is quite as emotionally resonant as it thinks it is. I think part of that is actually down to how subtle the storytelling is. So yes, at moments beautiful, but sometimes a little too abstract to really connect. Gameplay-wise, Monument Valley 3 sticks closely to the series formula. At its heart, it's a slow, atmospheric puzzle adventure where you guide Noor through surreal, Escher-inspired environments by rotating platforms, shifting perspective, and reconnecting fragmented structures. The objective, always the same, reach the next doorway. And on a surface level, it works. The transitions are smooth, the visual rhythm is lovely, and yeah, it's all framed with real elegance. There's even some new elements this time. A standout, a boat that Noor uses to traverse between a couple of puzzle areas. It gives the illusion of a slightly more open structure, even if in reality they're just simple corridors. It just manages to break up the pacing though, and it even folds into a few of the puzzles in clever ways that I appreciated. So yeah, it's not true exploration, but it's nice to see that experimentation. But here's the issue. The puzzles themselves here are just too easy. There's only ever one solution, and most of them are pretty clear. Even if you are not a puzzle expert, there is not much to chew on here. There's a couple of moments that might slow you down, but they're going to be rare. More often, the puzzles feel like pleasant steps forward, not meaningful problems to solve. It seems more interested in the journey than the actual challenge. And yeah, with no alternate solutions as well or branching paths, replayability here is, well, practically non-existent. Worse then, I think the controls actually make things easier. For reasons I still can't wrap my head around, there's no touchscreen support, despite the game starting life as a mobile release. Instead, you control a cursor that snaps to interactable elements. It's stuck to the structure. It's not free moving, so I constantly found myself fighting it, clicking on the wrong things, nudging the wrong piece. A floating cursor would have worked so much better, or, well, even more so than that, touchscreen controls. But because the cursor only highlights things you can interact with, the sense of discovery is gone. There's no experimentation, no tactile poking around. Just scan the scene, see what basically lights up if the cursor is over it, and move on. Now for context here, I played the first two games on mobile, and the difference with that control scheme, night and day. And yes, I will quickly say here as well, the same problem, no touchscreen controls, affects the recent Switch versions of Monument Valley 1 and 2 too. It is a consistent flaw, and it undermines a lot of what made the originals just so satisfying. Visually though, as I said in the opening, Monument Valley 3 is beautiful, no question about it. Now I played on Switch 2 and docked, the game looks absolutely stunning. The bold shapes, the shifting geometry, that almost papercraft elegance, it just pops. In handheld, because this is technically a Switch 1 title, you are getting a bit of an image stretch, and yes, the aliasing around some of these delicate structures is slightly more noticeable. But honestly, it holds up more than fine. This is a game designed to impress at any size. What I really appreciated is how the art direction evolves as you progress. It doesn't just stick to a single visual theme. Each chapter introduces new environments, shifting palettes, and fresh architectural twists that really give the world a real sense of movement. The way elements animate as well into place, the scale of some of these locations, the use of layering and silhouette, it's just honestly masterful. Even if the puzzles never quite push back, it's going to be the art style that's going to keep pulling you forwards. And audio then, just as polished. The soundtrack follows that same kind of restrained elegance, gentle piano, soft ambient tones, little flourishes that shift with your actions. It's really not there to dominate, but to complement, and it's so relaxing. There's a kind of emotional softness to it that works really well with the game's pacing. Sound design too as well. Subtle, I'd say, but effective. Interactions, they trigger quiet clicks or chimes, and those small cues go a long way in grounding the world. Nothing here is overstated, but it all feels placed with intention. You get the sense that every noise is there to gently nudge you in the right direction and not simply distract. Like everything else in Monument Valley, it's more about feel than flourish, and again, I think it nails it. Before we get to the final verdict, we need to talk about pricing because this one stings a little. Monument Valley 3 is launching at $19.99 USD or your regional equivalent. And in terms of length, you're looking at maybe 2.5, 3 hours. Maybe, I guess, a little bit more if you take your time, but I think I'm actually being generous there. And now that alone might give puzzle fans pause, especially since there's only one solution to each puzzle. So again, not much in the way of replayability. There's also right now some content missing. They originally announced the Garden of Life DLC would be included at launch. That's a DLC. It could have helped justify the cost, but that's actually been delayed. It will now arrive as a post-launch update. Here's the curious part though. Monument Valley 3 did actually originally launch on mobile as a Netflix exclusive. It was free with a subscription, but it was actually pulled just a few days ago. Now this was apparently due to licensing according to the developers. The team, however, are now saying consoles are going to be the immediate focus, with a phone release coming at a later date. And look, the thing is here, the first two games, they're still available on mobile, just $4 or your regional equivalent. And honestly, in that format, they control better. It's also quite the jump from $19.99 down to $4, and I know it's not the same game, but I think you can, say they're comparable. And that's not to say this one will land at that same $4 price tag either when it does eventually return to phones, but I'd be very surprised if it sticks anywhere near this $20 tag. It makes the Switch version, to me, a harder sell than it probably should be. So the final verdict, and as an audio-visual experience, I can wholeheartedly say Monument Valley 3 is stunning. The art direction is immaculate, the animation work is beautiful, and the sound design wraps it all in a quiet, meditative atmosphere. But it's the gameplay where it stumbles. Not only does it feel noticeably easier than the first two entries, to the point where puzzles rarely challenge or surprise, but the clunky cursor-based controls on Switch hold it back even further. The lack of touch support hurts, especially when the series was built around it, and without that tactile connection, something gets lost. Now the story has its moments, and I appreciate the quiet tone it goes for, but it doesn't hit as hard as it wants to. And with the absence of the DLC, the Garden of Life, at launch, and a surprisingly steep price point, it's kind of hard not to feel a little shortchanged. So for me, this is a beautiful looking game with a lovely atmosphere, but it's also somewhat a flat experience overall. So today, it's a 6 out of 10, above average, worth admiring, but definitely not the best the series has to offer, nor is it the best version of the game. Now, hopefully they can get the phone release back online soon, because without touch controls, it just feels like something's missing. Until then, it's worth considering. Don't get me wrong, if you understand what you're paying for and what you are getting, it's not really puzzle challenging, it's a short experience. But you could also consider checking out the first two entries as well. They're priced at $9.99 USD or $17.99 USD as a bundle. And honestly, with those two, I think the puzzles are better. I rarely factor pricing into a score, but with this one, I had to. So will you be checking out Monument Valley 3? Let me know in the comments. Again, if you enjoyed this, do me a favor and subscribe, helps out the channel a huge amount. And I'll see you on the next video. Cheers all.